Well, hello there. Welcome back to the channel. My name is James, and here at 20th and 21st Movies, we are about all things cinema. Well, now that we're in the month of October, I am really excited today to talk with you about some horror movie recommendations. So this is the first video in my series of horror movie recommendations that I'm going to do during this month. And I'm really excited about it. This first video is gonna be classic horror movie recommendations. So these are films that are more than 10 years old. So I'm gonna follow this up with another video with contemporary horror movie recommendations. Those are films that have been released from the last 10 years. This video today is gonna be films that are a little bit older, classic horror movies, a few of my favorites. And I'm looking forward to hearing in the comments below what some of your classic horror film favorites are. But I'm gonna share probably 7 or 8 titles here. These are 7 or 8 of my favorite go-to horror films, and I'm looking forward to hearing what some of those are for you and what you think about the films that I'm going to share with you now. So without any further ado, let's jump right into these horror films. Starting with the first film that I'll share with you, and these are in no particular order. I love all these films. I would have a tough time ranking them, just to let you know. But the first film I'll share with you is a film from 1976 from one of my favorite directors, from Brian De Palma, starring Sissy Spacek, John Travolta, and Piper Laurie in a all-time classic based on a Stephen King novel, and it is Carrie. This is a fantastic horror film that I just absolutely love. It's one of my favorite horror movies of all time, and it's just a great story about a girl with telekinetic power. She's in high school and just dealing with the angst of being in high school. She's a shy girl. She has these strange telekinetic powers, and she also has a domineering mother, and a lot of crazy things happen. So if you haven't seen the movie Carrie, highly recommend this. This is just classic horror, and it's one of the greatest horror movies ever made, and it's an all-time classic. This is the Scream Factory edition of Carrie, and it is just absolutely wonderful in high definition. Love this title. This is Carrie from 1976. Now, you might also want to be aware that there is a recent remake of this film from 2013 starring Chloe Grace Moretz and Julianne Moore. This remake, I'll just let you know right up front, is not as good as the original, but it's worth a watch. I like Chloe Grace Moretz. I like Julianne Moore. I think they do a fine job with this updated version of the story of Carrie. But again, it's not as good as the original, but it's worth watching. So this is from 2013. But I highly recommend the classic film Carrie. So that's my first horror recommendation. The next recommendation is a film that just recently got a sparkling new 4K Ultra HD edition that I highly recommend. And it's just one of those all-time classics from John Carpenter, director John Carpenter. And it's a film from 1982, and it is The Thing. This is starring Kurt Russell and a fantastic cast that includes Wilford Brimley, Keith David, and several other fantastic actors. This is just a great film. Kurt Russell leads a group of men on a mission in Antarctica. They come across a frozen alien being called The Thing, and that thing just wreaks havoc. And this is just fantastic film. Wonderful practical effects. This 4K Ultra HD edition that was recently released a few weeks ago is so absolutely beautiful. I mean, the HDR and the colors and the definition and the detail that you get in this image, it's just the best that this film has ever looked. And this is one of the all-time classic horror movies of all time. It will scare the living daylights out of you. It is a thrilling film from John Carpenter, one of the great horror movie directors. Highly recommended. The Thing from 1982. The next film is a film from one of my all-time favorite directors, Mr. Stanley Kubrick, starring one of my favorite actors, Jack Nicholson. You also have Shelley Duvall in this film. This is a film from 1980, and it is another Stephen King novel adaptation. It is Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. This is an adaptation of the Stephen King novel. And there's been some debate over the years as to whether or not Stephen King, what his feelings were about this adaptation. I heard there was some scuttlebutt about Stephen King not being entirely happy with Kubrick's film. But nevertheless, Stephen King's novel is brilliant, and this film adaptation of that material is also fantastic and includes a wonderful performance from Jack Nicholson. And it's just one of those films you just have to see. So Jack Nicholson plays a character named Jack Torrance in this film. He and his family, his wife Shelley Duvall and their family, go to the Overlook Hotel to watch the hotel for a winter. And this hotel, the Overlook Hotel, has a spooky past. So there's ghosts and different things that happen in this hotel. And it's just a fascinating film that I highly recommend. It's a scary film, and you see the evolution of Jack Torrance throughout this film and how these events affect him. And it's just one of the scariest movies that you'll ever see. I love this film, The Shining. It has a follow-up that came out in 2019. Of course, The Shining is from 1980, but there was a recent follow-up in 2019 of this film called Dr. Sleep. And it's also based upon a recent novel from Stephen King called Dr. Sleep. And it stars Ewan McGregor, Rebecca Ferguson, and this wonderful young actress here. I forgot her name. I'll put her name on the screen. But this is a great follow-up to The Shining, and it's a wonderful expansion of the Shining universe. I really enjoyed this film. This is from 2019. It's a recent film, and it's just a wonderful and worthy follow-up to 1980's The Shining from Stanley Kubrick. So highly, highly recommend this. So that's The Shining. The next is an absolute fantastic example of sci-fi terror at its best. This is a film from 1979 from legendary director Ridley Scott, starring Sigourney Weaver and a wonderful cast of supporting characters. In Alien, you have Sigourney Weaver, Tom Skerritt, Harry Dean Stanton, John Hurt, Veronica Cartwright. This is just an extraordinary film, and it's Alien. This is the 40th anniversary edition on Ultra HD, and this film looks amazing in this 4K Ultra HD presentation, but this is just a fantastic sci-fi alien terror type film, and it is a film you absolutely have to see. So this is a beautiful 40th anniversary edition of this film. Of course, there's been some recent Alien films that have followed up. Most recently, I think, is this film Alien Covenant, and this is also directed by Ridley Scott. Let me double check. I believe that, yeah, this was directed also by Ridley Scott. I had to double check who directed it. Ridley Scott directed this one as well, and it's a recent Alien film. I don't think any Alien film has come close to the original one from 1979, but this is a fine Alien film. And a few years ago, I picked up this Alien anthology, which is the Blu-rays of the first, I believe, 4 Alien films, and just amazing films. It has Alien, Aliens, Alien 3, and Alien Resurrection. So it has those 4 Alien films. Of course, the 4K Ultra HD version of Alien is a step up from the Blu-ray included on this set here, but this is a very nice set. I got it at Best Buy for a killer price several years ago. But overall, Alien is just a classic horror movie. It's classic sci-fi at its best, and it's highly recommended. Check it out. All right, the next recommendation is an example of good, fun, campy horror, and it is from the director responsible for the early Spider-Man films starring Tobey Maguire. It is Sam Raimi, and this is The Evil Dead. Now, The Evil Dead is from 1981 from Sam Raimi. Bruce Campbell stars in this classic horror vehicle in a classic cabin in the woods type scenario where he and a group of his friends are together in a cabin in the woods and crazy, spooky things happen. So this is The Evil Dead from Sam Raimi from 1981. There is also an Evil Dead 2. And this one came out in 1987 from Sam Raimi. So this is a nice follow-up. This is in 4K Ultra HD, also starring Bruce Campbell, and is a nice follow-up to the original Evil Dead that came out in 1981. So Evil Dead, another example of classic horror at its best. Good, campy, classic horror. So definitely check this one out. Now, this next one here is another film from John Carpenter, and it is one of the great horror films of all time. It stars Jamie Lee Curtis. This is from 1978. And there is another entry in this series coming out in just a few weeks on October the 15th. And this is none other than 1978's Halloween. This is the classic tale of Michael Myers. This stars Jamie Lee Curtis, and this is just an absolutely Fantastic, fantastic film. This film also stars Donald Pleasance as Dr. Loomis. This is just one of the great classic slasher horror films of all time. And if you haven't seen Halloween, you definitely want to check this one out. This is a great horror film. It's classic horror from John Carpenter's from 1978, starring Donald Pleasance and Jamie Lee Curtis. Halloween. And Halloween Kills comes out on October the 15th, so I'm looking forward to checking that one out. But this is where it all began in 1978 with Halloween. All right, so that brings us to my second to last recommendation for classic horror movies / Halloween movies, and it is directed by Philip Kaufman. This is from 1978, and this film stars a whole host of actors: Donald Sutherland, Jeff Goldblum, Brooke Adams, and of course, Mr. Spock, Leonard Nimoy. And it is 1978's Invasion of the Body Snatchers. This is directed by Philip Kaufman, and this is just a incredible film. This is actually a remake of the 1956 original Invasion of the Body Snatchers starring Kevin McCarthy. Kevin McCarthy does a cameo in this film. He also appears in this 1978 version in a small cameo appearance, which is very interesting to see. But this is just classic alien terror. Alien seeds make their way to Earth and they start basically taking over human beings, and you don't know who is who, and they basically take you over in your sleep. And it's just one of those classic horror films. Scary, tense, you don't know who to trust, you don't know who is who, you don't know what's going on. And it's just one of those scary, creepy films that you just absolutely have to see. The 1956 original is a classic, and this 1978 remake is, I think, a more than worthy remake. It is a fantastic film. This one is actually getting a 4K Ultra HD release that's coming out, I believe, on November the 23rd, same day as the Criterion release of Citizen Kane and Menace to Society on 4K Ultra HD, as well as Uncut Gems. So looking forward to that. So November 23rd is going to be a big day in physical media. And part of that's going to be a 4K release of this classic horror title from Philip Kaufman, starring Donald Sutherland and this incredible cast. It's called Invasion of the Body Snatchers from 1978. Check this one out. And that brings me to my last recommendation. And this is a little bit lighter, not as scary, but is one that I highly recommend during this time of the year. You absolutely have to check out this fun film starring the Peanuts gang, and it's The Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. This is classic Halloween fare from 1966. This is Charles Schultz's Peanuts gang, Charlie Brown, Snoopy, Linus, the whole gang. You definitely have to check out It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. This is from 1966. Check it out. So there you have it. That's my first entry in my horror movie recommendations. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think about my classic horror movie recommendations? What are some classic horror movie films that you would recommend that are some of your favorites? And what do you think about these classic movies that I presented here today? Let me know that in the comments below. Be on the lookout for my next video in this series, where I will look at contemporary horror films, films that have been released in the last 10 years that are some of my favorites that I recommend. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time at the movies. Peace.